McLaren has taken drastic action in an attempt to breathe life into its faltering F1 revival by axing technical director James Key and overhauling its technical structure entirely. 2 successive slow starts in F1's new ground effect era and a looming switch to much anticipated brand new development tools have forced McLaren's hierarchy into a massive reshuffle. This is not a knee-jerk reaction to a bad start to 2023, but the reasons behind its early season struggles are part of the decision, as we will explain. After encouraging progress from its late 2010s nadir, McLaren's bid to return to the front in F1 has stalled in the last couple of years. It started the new aerodynamic rule set in 2022 behind its leading midfield rivals and was beaten to 4th in the championship by Alpine. McLaren has failed to score points in the opening 2 races of 2023, and while that has been exaggerated by some unusual circumstances, such as poor reliability in Bahrain and both cars suffering front wing damage on the opening lap in Saudi Arabia, it is at least partly down to having to start the season with an outdated car concept. There is a significant upgrade due at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix at the end of April, which is the result of a development direction that McLaren moved on to too late to have it ready for the start of 2023. In response to these setbacks, McLaren has opted to revise its technical structure and move away from one single technical director. Key leaves the team, and in his place an F1 technical executive team is being installed, with 3 specialised technical director roles reporting to team principal Andrea Stella. Peter Prodromou will be Technical Director Aerodynamics, David Sanchez will return to McLaren after a decade at Ferrari next January as Technical Director Car Concept and Performance, while Neil Holdy is promoted to Technical Director Engineering and Design. Elsewhere in the organisation, Giuseppe Pesci becomes Director of Aerodynamics and Chief of Staff to support the running of the aero department, while Piers Tin takes on an expanded role as Chief Operating Officer. These are top-level changes that are being implemented alongside a general expansion of McLaren's technical department after it realised it needed to hire more engineers. McLaren had to make a lot of staff redundant to slim down for F1's cost cap, but overdid it, and in the second half of last year started to recognise that with a recruitment drive. The blunt reasoning for a significant restructuring and the first major figure to be axed in several years is that McLaren's technical performance didn't match its ambitions. McLaren Racing CEO Zak Brown has said that it has been clear for some time that the team's technical development has not moved at a quick enough pace. McLaren wants to be on a path to fight for titles in 2025. That has been targeted as the point where it has no more excuses in terms of infrastructure, as by then the wind tunnel and simulator it has been waiting years for will have been operational for long enough to be used for the entirety of the 2025 car's development cycle. Key was part of the push to invest in the wind tunnel and simulator, but departs before he can ever use them. Evidently, McLaren felt the 2025 target was in jeopardy as weaknesses in its aerodynamic knowledge and development were exposed. Something like this has been coming for some time. McLaren started this new aero rule set slowly last year and missed a key development direction on the floor edges that led to a setback in the design of the 2023 car too. And while it may not be connected, for he did eventually appear in a speaking capacity at the season opener in Bahrain, Key's absence from media activities at the car launch and from the test always seemed curious, as others like Stella and Brown initially spoke on his behalf, talking about mistakes in the development process and missed targets. This is a massive decision for a team that has worked to eliminate a blame culture that was rife just a few years ago and simplified its structure to have clear lines of reporting and responsibility. Blame and accountability are 2 very different things though. McLaren's ultimate leadership has lost confidence that the technical team in its current form and under Key's watch was capable of operating at the level required. Pointing fingers will get McLaren nowhere, but so will persevering with the same people and systems that are starting to produce a worrying pattern of underachievement. Repeat setbacks in the new ground effect era are unacceptable, so there must come a point where it's acknowledged that McLaren has underdelivered as a collective and needs changes. New processes and new ideas are necessary, and while that means someone at some point ends up being ousted, as long as it's done rationally, it's not necessarily a matter of blame, it's the reality of underperforming when performance is everything. So the question becomes, is this rational? It seems to be, but whether it is the right move is impossible to know at this point. The 2025 car in particular will be the first real reference for that. McLaren's gone in this direction before. Former CEO Martin Whitmarsh adopted a so-called matrix system from the aerospace industry and implemented it at McLaren early in the 21st century. Such a system is designed to be agile, flexible, and incorporate multiple lines of reporting, and can work more effectively than a more traditional monolithic structure. It was embraced by McLaren partly to prevent one individual having too much control, as Adrian Newey was seen to have before his departure to Red Bull. But in McLaren's case, it ultimately became slow-moving, intensely political, and heavily siloed. Newey slated it as an unnecessarily complex and wretchedly unworkable system. A lack of accountability grew, as did a blame culture, with the technical leadership criticised as being confused at times. Current team principal Andreas Stella, who joined McLaren with Fernando Alonso in 2015, described this structure as quite difficult to interpret. Brown was also critical of the matrix system approach, and McLaren went through major changes in 2018 as part of the overhaul that brought in Key in the first place. So while you might ask what will be different this time, both Brown and Stella are well aware of how a flatter technical leadership can cause problems. This structure is designed to be a little different to the matrix system McLaren once had, perhaps aping the way Ferrari currently works. That's a team that hasn't had a technical director since Mattia Binotto left the role to become team principal in 2019, and while Ferrari hasn't won a title in that time, it has recovered from its 2020 low point and won plenty of races. McLaren's restructuring has been stoked by Stella being given a mandate to review all elements of the team since taking over as team principal in December following Andreas Seidel's move to Sauber. Stella said it was necessary to give the team a long-term foundation and a structure that provides clarity and effectiveness within the technical department. There is no doubt a risk attached here, because if it goes wrong, it could end up being a step back towards a different kind of technical mess. But while McLaren has not been in a 2010s style decline yet, it has been declining. And with a new team principal in place reviewing everything, plus new infrastructure poised to be used for the first time, this looks about as convenient a time as any for action to be taken. Otherwise, McLaren risks making the same mistakes and having the same weaknesses while using better, fancier tools. And with 2025 looming, it could miss a much bigger target.